Joining me now, Daniel Levy is the president of the U.S. Middle East Project and a former Israeli negotiator in peace talks with Palestinian leaders. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Appreciate your time today.
Good to be with you, David.
I just wonder if you can start with the consequences of this. I mean, what does Israel's strike in Qatar today mean for the future of the peace talks that Qatar was hosting?
Well, I think that's quite clear. And I think for anyone who hasn't been paying attention, it should not come as a surprise that you have such a transparent demonstration by Israel's leadership that it is not interested in a negotiated outcome. Netanyahu has blocked that all along, often with the support of the US. But what you have seen today is not only the negotiators convening apparently to discuss the latest proposal on the table, not only have those people been taken out, but that has also taken place in the sovereign territory of the key mediator. So that's the finger to the very concept of mediation. The families, many of the families of those Israelis still being held, have long been convinced and are now even more convinced that those people, Israelis being held in Gaza, are not a priority. Netanyahu has made sure that this is not going to move forward. And it feels like this is just another transparent gesture by the Israelis to show that lack of interest, and that Israel is in fact committed to the displacement, the killing of Palestinians, the destruction and the genocidal project, as many have, I think, legally correctly described it, taking place in Gaza right now.
But still, Benjamin Netanyahu said today that Israel has accepted a new peace proposal from Donald Trump, right? And that they wanted to reach a peace on these terms. So given your criticism, I wonder, can mediation continue in another country? Or is this just it?
And David, if I may, let me ask you, if I told you your hairstyle looks fabulous today, would you believe me? Would you go, oh, I must check in the mirror? And that, I think one has to treat Netanyahu comment that we're interested in the peace talks in exactly the same fashion, given that he has just assassinated the negotiator and removed the mediator from the equation. It's really, you know, for those at the back who haven't been paying attention, this could not be a more stark demonstration of what is going on. But I also would suggest, David, that something else is going on here. I'm not sure Netanyahu had to take such a dramatic action just to make sure that yet another round of talks wouldn't succeed because he doesn't want them to and the Americans aren't forcing him to. I think this is sending a somewhat additional and different priority signal, and that is to Qatar and to the region, that Israel can act anywhere in the region, in any capital, with impunity, and it is trying to assert a regional hegemonic project. I think this was designed to embarrass the Qatari leadership. A Qatari national was killed in this. Israel is happy that the rumors are out there. You know, maybe the Americans knew in advance, maybe the Qataris knew in advance. He wants to undermine the Qatari leadership because the thing he is offering is there cannot be diplomacy. There has to be subservience or resistance, and most don't want to be in the resistance camp. But what you're hearing tonight from many capitals in the region is, what do we do when there is a rogue state emboldened and empowered by the US that threatens us all, and something that would have been inconceivable, and I acknowledge is still hard to think how it will look, but the idea of an Arab alliance that tries to deter and contain Israel is not that far over the horizon, and Israel, I would argue, is endangering itself and its own future well-being, in addition, of course, to everyone else in the region and primarily the Palestinians.
There has been this string of military successes throughout this conflict. For, like, Hamas is essentially, you know, it has been contained and degraded in massive ways. Hezbollah in a similar situation. They've gone into Iran, you know, and now Qatar, right? So their ability to act and achieve their successes without massive consequence is a notable thing. But now, as this is happening, well, Bibi Netanyahu does say he accepts the peace proposal, and I take your point on that. They're also warning people in Gaza to flee because they're getting ready to increase operations there. I mean, do you see this as just as an inevitable taking of the Gaza Strip, taking of West Bank territories? How do you see this playing out in the short to medium term here?
Right. And I think the intention is very much that. The intention is, and we wake up each day, depending on where we are in the world, to, was it a few dozen, was it double digits, was it triple digits in terms of Palestinians killed in indiscriminate Israeli bombings the previous day, in addition to those now feeling the effects of the war crime of using starvation. So the intentionality is very clear. The question of whether it can succeed, I think you put your finger on it there, David, it really now boils down to, can Israel be stopped? Is there such a military, unchallenged preeminence that not only can Israel continue with this campaign in Gaza, of course, it is also destroying infrastructure, displacing people, and de facto annexing the West Bank. Can it not only do that, but also indiscriminately bomb other regional capitals without being challenged? The gamble, the bet that Prime Minister Netanyahu is placing, is the answer to that is in the affirmative. I think many in the Israeli system look at this and say, this is too high stakes. It's not worth it, Mr. Prime Minister. You are turning the world against us. We are so dependent now on the US. And even in the US, Israel is becoming a controversial subject on both sides of the aisle. Public opinion is turning against us. It may be true that allies like Canada and in Europe, the UK, France, and others are largely still using the politics of grandstanding and gestures. Even recognition of the Palestinian state is not an actual sanction. It doesn't impose a cost, practically speaking, on Israel, but they are losing patience and their public is losing patience. Mr. Prime Minister, at the end of the day, we are a small state without an endless supply of reservists. We may have some great kit, but others are going to catch up with us as well on that. And you are turning this region and well beyond it irrevocably and irretrievably against this country. This cannot be sustained. And the Prime Minister is saying, watch me, it can be sustained. How that high stakes gamble plays out is going to determine not only whether the Palestinian people see any tomorrow, let alone a brighter tomorrow, not only whether the region can be restabilized and end this radical policy of Israel, but also it will determine whether Israel itself, I think, carries on into the future and what kind of a future that will be. But that's the gamble the Prime Minister's taking. You're absolutely right, David.
So, look, you were a peace negotiator for the Israelis, right, on this. And look, throughout this, I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu has made clear that he has certain ambitions. Hamas has not complied with demands to release hostages, sparking this on October 7th, and seems content to let the civilian toll rise while it holds on to the few dozen Israelis that are still there. With the dynamic the way it is, I mean, we spoke to Arif Lalani earlier on the show. He's a former Canadian diplomat in the region, and the suggestion from him was that the pressure needs to come internally in Israel. It needs to be the Israeli people who change the course of the behavior here for the government. So do you see that happening? Do you see the occupation of Gaza City becoming complete? And what might the consequences of that be as a final point?
Well, of course, the criminal actions by Hamas and other militant groups on October 7th does not excuse the fact that Israel was violating international law for decades before that and what Israel has done subsequently. What we will, I think, see is a continued attempt to go down this path. Israel, under Netanyahu, has offered no political plan. It's not just that Hamas has to hand back the people and disarm. Netanyahu has set 5 conditions, including permanent Israeli control and no Palestinian governance that anyone recognizes as being Palestinian. So what you have right now is an Israeli side bereft of any political diplomatic plan that could be acceptable to anyone, and therefore it is only trying to impose this militarily. The idea that the change will come exclusively from inside Israel would be nice. However, the evidence is that that is not going to happen. And so it is almost certainly going to have to be a combination of internal dissatisfaction with the government, which exists. It is polarized, but there is not enough criticism of the criminal actions against Palestinians alongside external pressure, because I think the lived experience of Israelis is the world doesn't care. We can get away with this. We can be treated with impunity. If the incentive structure changes, if the cost-benefit calculation changes because of sanctions, because Israelis see we are not being treated as a normal country, I think that frees up a different debate inside Israel. And then maybe you can see that change. One has to hope that's the case, David.
Daniel Levy, president of the U.S. Middle East Project. We appreciate your insight and your time. Thank you, sir. Good to have you here.
Thank you, David.